So I've been a forensic scientist for 30 years. My work involves investigating crimes and looking at submissions that the police sent in from crimes they're investigating. It might be assaults, it might be a burglary, it might be a murder. They would send things into the laboratory and I would look at the file and try and work out a strategy for the examinations. So a typical forensic case would be sent in by the police. I'd have a file, they would give me the information, I would have exhibits to examine. Say for example it's a serious assault, so I'd be looking for blood pattern analysis, where the blood is and so on. So once I've got the exhibits back at the lab, I would search the clothing for blood, and if I can't see it I can use a microscope, one of these low power microscopes, and move the clothing around looking for blood. I would know from the police information whether, for example, if it's an assault, whether someone's been punched, so I would know that I'm looking for the victim's blood on the suspect's arms, on his sleeves, on the front of his clothes, and once I found the blood I would mark it so that I can come back to it, and I would then take a sample and send it off for examination. So the case that most stands out in my forensic career is the case that's now known as the Steeltown murders. It first happened in 1973, so it's a cold case for me when I started looking at it in around about 1990. The murder of two girls in Llandarcy, South Wales, 15-year-old girls. It was investigated for 2 years, focusing on a white 1100 that had been seen at the crime area. The girls had been noticed as getting into that type of car. They'd hitched a lift coming away from the Top Rank disco that evening. I was first asked to look at it in 1990 with this new technique of DNA profiling. So I put everything away into a freezer and waited for about 7 years. It was 1997, 98 when we started to look again at it. This time the DNA tests that we were using were much more sensitive and we started to get profiles. We got a mixed profile. The girl's DNA plus the offender's DNA. So the next stage was to work out the girl's DNA, so we could subtract it and work out what the offender's DNA, so we could search it on the National DNA Database. A case that still impacts me to this day, apart from the Steeltown murders, is the murder of a young girl. Her name was Louise Smith. She'd gone missing on Christmas Eve and her body wasn't found until Valentine's Day the following year. The killer had tried to dispose of the body by dumping her in a quarry, tried to roll her down the side of the slope, but the body had got caught on some shrubs. Once the body had been found, we were able to get a DNA profile from her remains and we were able to identify the killer. So it stands out as a big impact, as a young girl losing her life, but then being able to bring closure to the family by finding who the actual killer was.